Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I am your host. And it has been a minute since I released an episode of the podcast. I am sorry about that. I have absolutely taken on way too many responsibilities, and I've said yes to too many things at the beginning of this year. And there's just been some extra life stuff going on in the background. And honestly, I've not kept up with everything as well as I would like to, but no fear. We are back with another great episode for y'all today. Today, I am chatting with Meaghan Hackinen, who just came in third overall at Arkansas Doom and was the first place women's finisher. She had an absolutely phenomenal run at Doom. On the first day, she actually led the race for somewhere between 5 to 6 hours and really put on an amazing performance. And I was so excited to chat with her. She does a pretty great job of introducing herself on today's episode. So I'm going to let her do that for you. And I am very much last minute scrambling and panicking to get everything ready to get out on the Arizona Trail. There has been just problem after problem with getting everything ready. And at the end of today's episode, I'll give a little update on what's been going on and where I'm at. But for now, I don't want to detract from Meaghan's episode. So I'm going to make this brief, but let's get right into it. First off, I'd like to thank my newest patrons, if we had any, but none this week. So if you would like to support the podcast, now would be a great time. To find out more, you can head over to patreon.com/bikesfordeath. And our episode today is also brought to us by my friends over at Old Man Mountain. Eric is joining me from Old Man Mountain. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Patrick.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on. I love talking about bike packing and getting people outdoors. And that's what y'all specialize in. So I know y'all make primarily two racks right now, the Divide and the Elkhorn, and we're going to dig into both of those on these mini pods. But today I thought we'd focus on the Elkhorn. So give us an idea of like what the Elkhorn is and who it might be best suited for.
Yeah, so the Elkhorn is a little bit different rack in that the uprights on it aren't made for panniers. They're made for 3-pack mounts. So you can put anything cages, many thing cages, king cage, basically anything you can bolt on. Small bolt-on panniers are great. Something that's going to be more modular in that setup and strap items on rather than just having a pannier where you're dumping all the stuff in the bag. So really, really great for carrying water. And those hard items that don't do well in a bag, but it still has the full deck of same as the Divide. It's the same sheet metal deck there. So it's solid, functions as a fender a little bit, and then has plenty of room to strap stuffs there. Works front or rear, comes in short or tall. So pretty much no matter the tire size, we've got you up to fat bikes on the front.
Nice. Yeah. So you said those can run front and rear. Can you fit that to suspension and non-suspension bikes as well?
Yeah, totally. So we have fit kits available to fit basically any bike out there, either QR through axle. We have the fit kit that has little studs that stick out the end to give you a mounting place that's super secure and solid. And then we have what we call pucks that attach with some really, really strong zip ties. They're actually stronger than eyelet mounting to give you a point on the stays or on the fork to attach the extenders. And those extenders come with the rack in front and rear lengths. And you can also chop the longer ones down just to really perfectly fit your bike if you need to. So full suspension, hardtail, gravel bike, tri-bike, whatever you want, we can put it on there.
Dude, that's awesome. I mean, that's what makes racks so great is you can turn any bike into a bike packing bike, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Totally.
So, yeah. Dude, we appreciate y'all so much. We love the products that y'all make and help people get outside. If people want to check them out, where can they go find you guys online?
Yeah, obviously we're on YouTube, Instagram, Old Man Mountain Racks is our handle, and then oldmanmountain.com. And keep an eye out. We've got a lot more stuff coming this year.
Heck yeah, buddy. Well, we can't wait to hear all about it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Patrick.
All right. Thank you. And remember, if you would like to save 10% on anything at Old Man Mountain, just use the code Mountains or Death at checkout. And if you would like to use our affiliate link located in the show notes, Bikes or Death will get a little kickback every time you make a purchase at Old Man Mountain as well. And we thank you. All right, ching, ching, ching. Bills have been paid. And now it is time to get to my episode with Meaghan. I absolutely enjoyed chatting with her. She is a phenomenal athlete and cyclist and human being. And it was great to talk to her. So let's get into it. But first, let's have my friend Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes for Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
Not my normal space. I'm staying with some friends in San Diego for the next 5 weeks, and I got here last night, so I'm pretty fresh. My bike isn't unboxed yet, and I am I'm really excited about getting to do some cool rides.
What are you doing in San Diego?
My goal is to do some like multi-day adventures. I work part-time and remotely, so I'm pretty flexible about where I'm at. I'd like to do this stagecoach loop. Sounds like it's a little rough, but I feel like I survived doom, so I should be okay with that. And there's a newer route called the Ranchita Rambler, kind of around like Borrego Springs and Ranchita. But yeah, just looking for like some multi-day adventures. I'm doing Tour Divide this summer, and I honestly haven't been out on the bike alone that much. So, which sounds silly. Like I've done a lot of day things, but not for several days. So I'm hoping to do kind of some 3 to 6 days out while I'm here, and then come back, do my work, and head out again.
Yeah. What do you do for work?
I work for the Federation of BC Writers. We're a provincial creative writing nonprofit organization and kind of supporting writers wherever they are in their creative journey. So from somebody who's 79 and wants to start writing their memoir to professional poets and creative nonfiction writers. So my role is assisting with programming, booking presenters, and kind of opening up the Zoom room and hosting a lot of online sessions and programming. So there's certain events that I like need to be there for, and then there's a lot of emails and communication that I can do anytime.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So that's a good job that allows you and helps you, I guess, helps facilitate this type of adventurous lifestyle. Harder to do when you have a 9-to-5 desk job.
It definitely does. And I've reduced my hours for the next 6 months so that I can kind of gear up for Tour Divide and, be able to focus more on bike stuff in the summer. And then I'll work more in the winter. And in terms of programming, our audience gets busy in the summer as well. So there's a lot more demand for stuff in those colder, snowy months up in Canada.
Yeah. Are you still based out of Canada? Is that where you're living full time? Most of the time?
Yeah, I live in Kelowna, BC. So it's kind of a, mid-sized town, halfway between Vancouver and Banff. So it's kind of in the middle of the province, the lower part. It's a good place for gravel riding. We have quite a bit of Forest Service roads and stuff to explore. So it's it's a pretty fun place to be.
And pretty close to the start of the Tour Divide, so that'll be convenient.
Yeah, it'll be easy to get there. Harder to get home, but
harder to get home. As it is, I guess, for everyone. Before I forget to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Hackinen?
That's right. Nailed it.
Oh, all right. Well, it's pronounced how it looks like it would be, but you never know how names are actually pronounced because sometimes there's like weird pronunciations. Yeah. And since you're a writer, I want to make sure I get all the pronunciations correctly. Yeah, I don't want to botch that. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm really stoked to be here. That's cool that you were out at the event and, kind of seeing, I don't know, I bet you saw a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, I tried to see as many people as I could. I don't know if you know, but I was supposed to be riding it, and I'm waiting on a bike right now. I'm preparing. Well, I'm past preparing. Maybe I'm not past preparing. I'm past the any type of training for AZT, but I'm supposed to head out on the AZT on Tuesday morning, and my bike I think is being held up in customs in Canada right now, and I am just like I'm kind of in panic mode, waiting and just hoping. I'm like refreshing the UPS tracker like every few minutes, like where are you at? Where are you going to be? And then like when the bike gets here, I need a wheel built. And so like I've had to like last minute scramble to get all the pieces in line, but hopefully it'll all work out.
Right. You're a rider for Panorama, right?
Yeah. I work, I don't know what I'm technically the US sales rep for Panorama. It's kind of a tough time to be a sales rep because a lot of bike companies aren't, or like a lot of bike shops aren't looking to take on more bikes right now because it's kind of a tight time. But yeah, I've been working with them for like a little over a year and a half now, and they've been great. I saw on your Instagram you tagged Gear Bike Database, or is that right? Bike Gear Database. Is that you? Is that your website?
No, they're a kind of a Canadian website. They do gear reviews. They have some journal stuff, and I write for them sometimes. And they're just a really great community of people. And it's awesome for me to have a chance to kind of share some bike stories. I have a website and a blog, but I pretty much just post things that aren't publishable elsewhere on the blog. I don't really make too much of an effort, but yeah, I know it's a cool website. I did a piece recently called "How to Get Started as a Bike Pack Racer," and it kind of like pulled some of the stuff I've learned over the past 6 years and laid it out. And of course, like that's like a whole book, right? So trying to connect that into something tangible, but. When I started bike pack racing in 2017, like I didn't know anything. I didn't have any friends who were racing. It wasn't as big then. I didn't know that like off-road bike pack racing was a thing. So I think that there's a lot to learn, and anything I can kind of do to help increase the pool of competition, because obviously I love to compete and bring more athletes into the sport and make it more exciting. Like that brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hosting a bike packing basics. It's basically bike packing 101, but my term is bike packing basics, and I do it once a year in the spring, and it's super entry level. Like we have a SAG vehicle that can carry gear and pick up your bike and take you and your bike to camp and stuff. And so obviously I podcast and stuff, and so getting people just into the sport is something I'm passionate about. I will say I'm not a racer, so I'm just like, hey, let me get you out there camping, and then they can go and talk to you, and you'll get them. They'll read your blog post, and you'll teach them how to actually race. Maybe they'll pick up a couple things on this episode too.
Awesome. Yeah. We've got like a two-step system to like being a bike pack racer. They'll see you and then they'll come see me, and then they'll be like signing up for Doom.
Perfect. Everybody else can retire. Meaghan and I, we have this on lockdown. Do you go by Meg or Meaghan, by the way?
I go by Meaghan, but Meg is fine. I'm not too picky. I think my social media accounts for Facebook, my professional one is Meaghan and my like personal one is Meg. And so I've tried to keep Meaghan in the professional like domain, but because my Instagram is linked to my personal page, it kind of comes up as Meg. So I'm happy with either. That doesn't bug me. And Meaghan, like the way I spell it, has like 1 million letters. So I appreciate this of Meg, 3 letters.
Yeah, there's a couple extra letters, but it's manageable. Well, my first question is, holy shit, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Will you ever be okay again? I mean, I didn't, I was out there taking photos. To circle back, I guess I didn't finish that thought. I was supposed to be riding. My bike didn't come in, still waiting on it, fingers crossed. But I messaged Andrew and I was like, I just want to come out and help and be a part of the event any way I can. He's like, great, come out, take some photos, which I love to do. It's just, I mean, if I can't race in it, it's cool to be on course, getting to see the route, getting to take pictures and kind of share from that perspective. And I think, having some familiarity with the route, I got in a little bit of a ride and I did a hike, as you know, to hike in to see and take pictures of you. And, so I got to see the course, which I think helps, not the whole thing, but I think it just helps, with my understanding of what you did and what all the athletes out there did. But yeah, how are you doing? That's a brutal course.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty rough afterwards. It always shocks me how a short event can just destroy your body, because I've done pretty long ultras, right? And I was in rough shape for the couple days after, and I was making like old lady sounds and groans every time I bent over, like involuntarily. I'm sure I was like moaning in my sleep. I had kind of a sore lower back, which is unusual, and I think it might have been just from like putting so much like of my body and force into the pedals on those climbs. That was the main thing, a sore lower back, and I didn't have any joint issues or hand issues or anything. And then just kind of this like all-encompassing bodily fatigue and need to sleep it off a bit.
Yeah. Are you finding that the recovery and the kind of maybe not the mental, maybe the mental and physical impact of that race is greater than what you would expect from it being, let's see, you did it in 2 days, 4 hours and 15 minutes. So, relatively short race as they go. Are you feeling the effects more than you thought that you might be?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. What hurts the most right now?
I think like the lower back, which again is unusual. It's just really stiff and sore. And I've been sleeping on sofas and crash pads and air mattresses. So last night was my first night in a bed since last Wednesday, when I left my Airbnb and headed out to the ranch. So I mean, that might have something to do with it. Maybe if I was sleeping on actual beds, I'd recover a little quicker. But just embracing the dirtbag lifestyle right now. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited to talk about Doom, but as a matter of getting to know you better and introducing you to me and the audience, you mentioned that you got into bikepacking in 2017. Is that right? And I'd love to just hear like how you learned about bikepacking. What about bikepacking was like, oh, I want to go try that. And when did you get into it, or why did you get into it?
Yeah, for sure. So I did my first bike tour in 2009, and I cycled the Pacific Coast with my sister from northern British Columbia to almost the tip of the Baja Peninsula. And that was just because biking seemed like a really great way to travel. It was cheap, environmentally friendly, and you could meet people and see the places in between. So I've done a few big tours after that. I biked across Canada. I biked down the Sierra Cascades into Mexico again, this time to Puerto Vallarta. And then I got really involved in roller derby. And for people who don't know, roller derby is a full contact sport on old school quad roller skates. And I just like fell in love with that. I was playing on a pretty like high level team in Vancouver, BC. And I was riding my bike as a commuter and to get around. And then I blew out both of my ACLs, and I had blown out one before. So I've had 2 ACL surgeries, 3 ACL tears. One of them is torn right now. Jesus. I'm not sure which one. I have like no meniscus left. And my doctor was basically like, no more contact sports for you, kiddo. And I was like, oh, shit. But I have a really, really strong competitive drive. Like I need to do something like physically hard and competitive. So that was kind of around 2014, 2015. I was looking for a sport. I moved to the Canadian prairies to study creative writing in grad school. And I discovered randonneur cycling there. Randonneur cycling is a non-competitive form of ultra distance cycling where people do rides between 200 and 1,200 kilometers with checkpoints and have to finish within time windows. And through rondonneering, I just kind of learned that the perceived boundaries and limitations we have on our bodies are, we can do so much more than we think we can. I was riding with all these folks in their 60s, then they're out doing 400-kilometer rides on the weekend, and then showing up for, babysitting or work on Monday morning, just like it was no big deal. In 2016, when I started rondonneering, Lael Wilcox won the Trans Am bike race, and that put that event on my radar. I think for me, seeing a female win an event of that caliber just really made me curious about my own limitations and what I could do. And there weren't as many bikepacking races around, so I signed up for the Trans Am and got prepared to do it in 2017. So I raced the Trans Am, made it to the finish, learned a whole lot along the way, and I've kind of been doing events ever since. A couple of my favorites have been the North Cape 4000 from Turin, Italy to North Cape, Norway. In 2022, I did the Transcontinental from Gerardsbergen, Belgium to Burgas, Bulgaria. In 2021, I got my salsa cutthroat because I was worried that the pandemic would never end and I would be stuck place. And after the initial vehicles left the roads and the vacationers stopped and traffic picked up again, I was like, oh God, I do not want to be on these roads with these big trucks and RVs. This is terrifying. I'm going to get hit. I'm going to get hurt. This seems really, really illogical. And where I live, there's a ton of Forest Service roads, great camping, lots of stuff to explore, a rail trail. So I asked around and everyone was like, if you can afford it, you should get a salsa cutthroat. So I found a used one, I bought it and kind of got into off-road bikepacking. So I'd done a few events in BC and Canada, like the BC Epic 1000, the Log Drivers Waltz, and the Dark Divide in Washington. And I think I prefer the off-road mixed surface stuff. I'm not really a trail rider. I don't have great technical skills. So I like the quad trails and things that are not too technical. I still enjoy road cycling sometimes, but I think it's actually a lot better in Europe where they have more of a road cycling culture and more roads that are less traveled, kind of winding up a mountaintop with these incredible peaks, versus where I live, it's mostly highway riding, which isn't too thrilling anymore. And I've won some races along the way. I guess I didn't mention that, but I have been, getting some pretty good results in local events.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are doing a great job introducing yourself. You're making my job very easy on me. I wanted to touch on what some of your career highlights are, and so let's talk about what wins do you have under your belt?
So I think my first big win was the BC Epic 1000. That's about 1,040-kilometer bikepacking race across BC along Trans-Canada Trail, Forest Service Road, a little bit of pavement to link things up. I just got my bike a few months beforehand, and the day before the race, a heat dome kicked in. So it was just obscenely hot. The event takes place at the end of June. And it was kind of the first event in our area post-COVID or post-COVID restrictions, I guess. So we really didn't know if it was going to happen or not until about a month beforehand. But I really prepared for it quite seriously. I wanted to set the new women's fastest known time, and I thought I had the legs for that. And I kind of just ran away with the lead on the first night, and it was such an exciting feeling to just be pulling farther and farther ahead of the field, and know that people were watching my dot, people were cheering for me. Everybody gets really excited when a woman has the lead. So to get to the finish, I think the next finisher was 17 hours behind me. So to have that kind of win and know that I really brought it. I really delivered on my strategy. I didn't sleep that much, but I slept enough to not turn into a zombie. And I rode pretty clean. I fell once and wiped out and smashed my hand up. I lost my e-tracks. I had to navigate on my phone for the rest of the ride, but it was a pretty smooth ride. And other people were literally getting checked into hospital with heat stroke. So it was extreme conditions. And I somehow danced through it.
That's amazing. I have goosebumps. That's amazing. I love that. A 17-hour lead and overall victory. I agree. I think we all get excited when we see a female that's outright leading when Lael won. It's why, I mean, don't tell everybody else, but the reason I hiked into the single track, I wanted to track you down. When I woke up that morning, you were in the lead. I think it was. No, I think you had the lead for a while. I think you had just lost it, but I was like, I'm gonna go in there and take pictures of Meaghan and anyone else that I see.
Oh, that single track section was so rough on me. Like, as I mentioned, I'm not a technical rider. I've taken a couple mountain bike lessons, so I'm better than I was, but I was, I think, 4 miles ahead of the third place rider when I entered, and like he caught me within like a half hour. I'm so much slower than other people, and I really I need to work on that aspect because a lot of rides throw single track in, and I think it makes it really interesting too because it forces you to reconsider your bike choice and stuff. But yeah, at the same time, I kept saying to myself, like, you're not going to win the race here, but you could lose. You could wipe out and smash your face in and DNF right now. So just like keep moving, keep going. You'll get through it. But that kind of put me on a bit of a downward spiral for the rest of the day.
Oh no! So was that Kuya that was in third place?
Yeah. Right. And when he caught me, I think he was happy to have someone to socialize with. So he rode up in front of me and I would just kind of catch up with him when he'd stop. And it was nice to have another rider in the bush and just to be able to see somebody and have a little bit of a carrot in front of you.
Man, It is so remote out there. You know, when I saw Dexter on that same single track, I went back to take photos. When he passed me, he said, or when he saw me, he's like, "Oh, a human. Let me see if I remember how to do this," which I think he was saying, remember how to talk to somebody because it'd been so long since he's seen anybody, you know, and so having those brief interactions, I think, are mentally stimulating and maybe get you out of your own head for at least a brief period of time.
Totally, yeah.
While we're talking about the single track, I was curious about your bike choice. So I believe you were on your Salsa Cutthroat for this one, drop bar. Looked like you had a pretty wide tire on your setup. With the single track and everything, like, how do you feel about that bike for this course? How did that do for you?
Well, I guess I could have taken my road bike with 25 tires, but
probably not a good idea.
That's the bike I'm going to ride, right? Like,
yeah.
I put a 2.2 and 2.35 tires on, and I have a redshift stem. So for most of the course, it was fine. For the single track, like maybe a mountain bike would have been better, but I don't have a mountain bike. I don't know how to ride a mountain bike, so that might be a future thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. That sounds like the next step in your progression as an athlete. You mentioned that you'd taken some courses and lessons on more technical riding, and so. Maybe that's the next step. Maybe you'll be riding the AZT pretty soon.
I was chatting with Corey, who was the first single speed finisher. We went for lunch after, and he was talking about the AZT, and he was kind of like, yeah, maybe like whetting my appetite a bit, or maybe not. He was telling me how far it was between like resupply and how all of your devices die and you're just out there by yourself. But he did describe it with a bit of magic.
Yeah, I saw you. I'm terrified of the AZT, by the way. Yeah,
you're heading over there.
Yeah, on Tuesday. Yeah, I'm in freak out mode right now, but it's going to be whatever it's going to be, you know. So it'll be fine, one way or another, as long as I don't die.
It'll be an experience.
It'll be an experience. Yeah, experience by bike. Hey, that's the title of another podcast. Yeah, I saw you. So you had the Executioner Burger at OART Cafe in Jasper, Arkansas. That is a staple, I think, meal anytime you're in the area.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, it's 2 grilled cheese sandwiches with a burger fixing in between and like a boatload of French fries. And Corey and I shared like a giant milkshake as well. It was awesome.
That's amazing. I remember my first time going there, I did a bike rafting, I think that's bike pack rafting, whatever you want to call it, trip there on the Buffalo National River. And then we tied in, obviously, some gravel roads. And that's where we went after our bike rafting trip. And I remember that executioner. Actually, I got a sticker on my cooler, so I'll never forget. That I don't know. It's just an experience. I think if you know the area, there's hardly anything out there. So resupply points are coveted, and that's one of the really nice ones out there. And it's just an experience.
And I think it used to be on the old course, so people could on the way, and now it's not on the route anymore. And inside there's just like all these old photos. Like it's a real experience. It's that place.
Yeah, so you can't get it on the route anymore, unfortunately. But I think you made the right move and reward yourself after with an executioner for sure.
Yeah. We were there for like 2.5 hours. It's a real laid back lunchtime. And I think we were just trying to get back in before the next finishers came through, right? So that was a huge part of the event, hanging out at the finish line and cheering in everybody who, comes in later. And I think really contributed to like the community aspect of the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was an amazing event. The venue there that Andrew has at Horseshoe Canyon is really cool and allows everybody to spread out but hang out if they want to. It has all the amenities, and it's just freaking beautiful. I mean, can you picture a better drive into that canyon? I mean, it was just with all the goats on the hills, and I mean, it's just idyllic. It's right out of a postcard.
It is. And sometimes race directors put something really hard at the end. And there were like these 2 climbs that I did have to push my bike up, but the last maybe like 10 miles are pretty easy. And they include this like wicked descent into the finish line where you just, you get a couple minutes to kind of celebrate your finish by yourself as you're like, enjoying this beautiful descent and seeing this canyon open up and the goats and then you hear the cowbells ringing and people are cheering you in. And Andrew was there for every single finisher. So like, man, what a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's sleeping on an air mattress right there at the finish line. And he said, just wake him up and he'll have a beer with, actually, I don't even think you have to wake him up, but he'll have a beer with you no matter what time of day. So I think he was putting them back throughout the weekend, but that's part of that's part of the job as a race director. I understand.
Yeah. You're one. So, you know what the kind of task that comes with.
Yeah. It is its own endurance sport, sleeping or not sleeping a lot. And just, I don't know about Andrew. I stress out about all the ride. I mean, there's just so much going on. You have hundreds of people out there on the field. It's your course. You invited them and you want everything to go well. So it's just kind of stressful the whole time, but a good kind of stress, but
especially in course where it's like, people, their bikes are going to implode. They're going to get injured. Like there are going to be some negative consequences because of the type of terrain that you are on. Right. And it's not your fault. They're all there by choice. You didn't that sharp rock in front of them to slice their sidewall tire or sidewall of their tire. It just happened.
Some of them think that I did, but it's true. I didn't do it. Yeah. Ariel posted, Ariel works with me and helps me with events. And he was actually saying it all weekend. He's like, if it's going well, you can thank me. If you're unhappy about something, it's all Patrick's fault. So why Doom? What put it on your radar? Why did you decide to take on this route? I mean, coming from Canada, it's a little ways away. Had you ever been to Arkansas too? I'm curious. So
no, I've never been to Arkansas. I've been to kind of some of the nearby-ish states during the Trans Am. Not that close, even like Missouri and Kentucky. Those are the places I kind of relate to Arkansas. So every year that it's happened, there's been a Canadian representative. The first year, my friend Taryn Davis did it. She actually DNF'd, and then she came back in the fall and did an ITT and finished, which was very, very cool. Like
so fucking cool.
To come back and do it by yourself. What a total badass.
Absolutely.
And, last year, my friend Jocelyn De La Rosa, he lives in the same city as me. He did it, and he actually placed third. And he, said it was a great, hard, challenging route. And because I'm doing Tour Divide this year, I really wanted something early season to kind of set my sights on and train for that would not interfere with Tour Divide. So there's like several months in between. I can kind of both have them both as A races. So I thought this would be, kind of a good event to kind of test out some kit, see where I'm at, and just really challenge myself.
So your Canadian friends were like, okay, Meaghan, you're next. I did it. And then you're just drawing names out of the hat. And it was your turn to represent Canada at Doom, eh?
That's right. Yeah. There's actually a couple of riders from Squamish, another city that I didn't know would be there. And we ended up camping in the same area. I had to walk through their campsite to get to where I put my tent. So it was pretty cool to see that I wasn't the only one. And maybe next year there might be like more. Who knows? Both of them DNF'd, so they might be back.
Did you know that they were going to be out there, or was that a surprise to you?
No, I didn't know that. No, I was surprised. We have some like mutual friends, so so we have some connections, and now I know them. But yeah, it was pretty wild to meet people kind of from my neck of the woods.
Yeah. Let's talk about your training, how you prepared for Doom. I would love to, get some Sorry, what?
Insufficiently.
Well, that is pertinent. You know, I mean, whatever you did or didn't do, I'd love to hear about it.
For sure. So my winter training is mostly using Trainer Road and doing indoor workouts. I have asthma. I do not do well in the cold. I can commute, I get around, I can go hiking, but to do like a hard workout, to do any sort of workout, like I wheeze, I cough, I spit up buckets of phlegm. It is not something that my body does well. You will not see me on the start line of the Iditarod. So I train mostly indoors, and I do kind of hiking and snowshoeing for my endurance on the weekends. I started doing some outdoor rides in March, and during my training, I focus on kind of like high intensity intervals. I like to do kind of more shorter, challenging workouts because it's so dull on the indoor trainer. So if you're working hard, at least you're focused and concentrated and engaged. And I actually tried a few 4-hour endurance rides, and I like failed them because I was so bored. And it was kind of concerning because I was like, okay, well, you're going to go into the wilderness for 2+ days, and you can't even stay on the bike for 4 hours, Meaghan. Like this might not bode well for you. I guess a couple of weeks ago, my partner lives in Portland, so I flew into Portland to see him and started getting bigger outdoor miles on. We did a trip to the coast and biked out and camped and then biked back, and those were 2 pretty big back-to-back days. Obviously not like a race, but feeling what it's like to load kit up on the bike again and sleep outside and just kind of being in nature for that long. And I had a wonderful time. The weather was perfect. It was beautiful. We got to explore some new gravel roads. Just stopping at that midpoint resupply and eating a million donuts and things from the hot case. Like I was like, oh, right, this is why I love biking again. You can definitely ride for more than 4 hours when it's beautiful and you're seeing things and, the wind is in your hair. So yeah, I flew into Fayetteville about 10 days early because I wanted to kind of explore Arkansas, and I found a cheaper Airbnb, and I thought it would be a cool place to kind of just do some fun, longer gravel rides. I did 3 rides, and then I caught a cold. And so I was in bed for I guess I got sick on Saturday, and the event started on Friday. And I barely left bed until Monday afternoon. And then Tuesday, I wasn't doing so hot. Wednesday, I was feeling pretty good. And I hopped on the bike to go and do all my errands and pick all my race stuff up. Thursday, I was completely non-symptomatic, but I think I probably had some deeper fatigue. And I did my shakeout ride at Horseshoe Canyon Ranch. And I was feeling good on the single track, as good as I'm going to feel. And I felt like, I was committed to getting to the start line. And if I woke up in the morning and didn't feel good and, had a headache or just felt dizzy or something, I was prepared to not start and just hang out at the ranch and be there to cheer people on and welcome everyone as they were finishing. I would rather get to the start and then pull the plug at the last minute than kind of pull the plug too early or pull the plug too late. Like I didn't want to get onto the course and be like, actually, I don't feel well, I'm going to quit. I would, I don't know. I think it's okay to like not finish a race, but I would rather not start than not finish, if that makes sense. And I knew it was a cool place to hang out. So I was happy kind of going there and making that call at the last minute. And yeah, I felt fine. I think that during the race, there probably was some deeper fatigue, and, 6 days isn't a long time to recover from a cold, even if it isn't like, really, really bad or anything. But yeah, I didn't, I wasn't coughing or I didn't have congestion or anything like that when I was racing. So I was pretty relieved.
Oh yeah. What an amazing, that had to be very stressful, to be managing all that leading up to and not being able to like fully mentally commit to what you're about to do because you don't know where your body's at and if you're going to be ready. And so I could see just being in limbo as just being like a really stressful kind of time period leading up to the race.
Totally. It was like a race to get to the start of the race, like a race to heal, but like the opposite of a race because you're literally doing nothing. And I'm just hanging out, drinking soup and soothing liquids and going for little walks in the evening just to move my body. But staying off the bike before an event is really hard for me. Like I don't taper well. I have like anxiety about the event. I want to prove myself. And I think as a consequence, I put a lot of fatigue into my legs near an event. So I felt very fresh going into this one, which is a good thing, I think, with the crazy amount of elevation.
Yeah. Yeah. What were your, what was your strategy and goals going into this race? And now I'm wondering if maybe those shifted based on the fact that you didn't know exactly where you were going to be at physically from recovering from your cold. But yeah, just give us an idea of like what were your thoughts going in? Like what was your strategy and goals and how were you going to attack this race?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely wanted to win the women's race, and I was hoping for a sub 48-hour finish, but I didn't really account for like all the single track that was added to the course. I knew it was there, but in my mind, I'm always like, oh, it's just a little bit of single track, and it's not that slow. But I think like 5 kilometers an hour for several hours really does slow you down quite a bit in the long term. So yeah, I wanted a sub 48-hour finish. I wanted to be the first female across the line. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I love competing. Like I like to be in there with the other athletes. I like to be part of the action. So I wanted to do that in this race, and wherever I ended up, I wanted to be around other dots and challenging them. So that was another goal. If I wasn't able to do those things, then I wouldn't have started. Like if I, woke up on Friday and I was like, I don't think I can go for that 48-hour finish. Like I would have just, I wouldn't have begun because ultra is so challenging. You can't go into every event at 100%, but you have to kind of hit this minimum threshold. Otherwise, it's just going to be a real sufferfest. And I think the consequences are quite high. If you space out, you go over a cliff. Like there's a lot that could go wrong. So.
Yeah, especially I'm probably at a lot of these events, but Doom in particular, I know with the steep descents, the loose rocks, the very tight hairpin turns at high speeds. I literally in 2019, I almost flew off a freaking mountain doing a bike packing. We were just doing a 3-day bike packing ride in Arkansas. But I know Andrew, I don't know if he mentioned at this race meeting. I think he did actually, but be careful. I think they've almost had some people fly off the road before. So it's not a course where you want to not be on your A game and not, paying attention to what you're doing because the consequences out there are real. The potential for danger is real.
Yeah, for sure. The point where I kind of reassessed my race was in the second single track section where you saw me at the Buffalo River, Buffalo Headwaters section.
Buffalo Headwater, yeah.
Headwaters, yeah. And I realized things were going slower and I hoped to get into OARC before the general store closed. And I got there at like 6 and it closed at 4. And then my race plan, I was supposed to get there between 2 and 4. So realizing I was kind of 2 to 4 hours behind, I reassessed how long I would be out there. I realized I had to charge some of my devices a bit longer. I have a dynamo, but I wasn't using it to charge anything because I figured I would be done so quickly. I wouldn't need that power except for a light. So I took a longer break in OARC and charged some things. I had like a bit of a mental reset, and I had the consequence of like a bunch of riders kind of catching up to me and then having to pull away from them again. But I needed a break at that time once I realized I was going to be out there for more than 2 days. And the thought of going into that next night and knowing I wasn't going to finish until daylight was actually kind of terrifying. Like realizing that I still had, 4,000 meters of climbing, like 110 miles or something ahead of me. I knew it wouldn't be easy, so I needed to prepare for that.
Yeah. Speaking of fear, one of the things I wanted to get your thoughts on, or just hear from your perspective, going into these events, as knowing that you're going to push yourself so hard, do you have fear and anxiety just because you know that you're about to suffer, you're about to go deep? And does that excite you, or do you feel fear and anxiety around it? Like, what are your kind of pre-race thoughts and internal monologues like whenever you're about to do something like this?
All of the above. It's scary and exciting. And I read this book, I think it was called How Bad Do You Want It by Matt Fitzgerald. And he's like,
I've had him on the podcast.
What? Oh my God. He says, like, basically, if you're competing, if I do this right, this will be the hardest race of my life. And if I do it wrong, like, it's going to be a disaster. So I kind of go into every event being like, if you do this right, it's going to be the hardest thing you've done. You're going to be on that like knife's edge of pushing, but not overextending. And so that's kind of what I'm going for. Like, I want it to be hard, but not too hard that you like blow up and have to stop. So that's a difficult place to be sometimes. Sometimes you get into that flow state and it just kind of time goes by and it's all right. But other times it's really challenging, and to remain focused when you're uncomfortable and it hurts is difficult, and you have to ask yourself why you're doing it. And I'm not a sponsored athlete. Like, I have product sponsors, but no one pays me to be here. There is no prize money. I'm gonna get a Montucky beer at the end. So I really am doing this for myself, and I have to kind of that has to be the reason why I'm doing it. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but it is scary, just knowing that it could be really hard. But on the other hand, if I execute it to the best of my ability, hopefully it won't be like horrendous. It will be manageably hard.
Yeah. I love that you brought up How Bad Do You Want It. It is my favorite kind of like hype book for it's the book I read before. Like, my first and longest event was a 500-mile race here in Texas, and that book absolutely kind of, I feel like, fueled and spurred me to the finish. I mean, and that simple question, how bad do you want it? And that speaks to like your training leading up to it, and then the mental hurdles you'll have to face and overcome whenever you're in it. But it really, I mean, outside of like mechanicals and stuff like that, it comes down to how bad do you want it? So, I had him on the podcast quite a while ago. He was like, I don't know, in the 40s or 30s or something of the episode. I had him on quite a while ago. But great book. So I recommend that to anybody else that, again, I'm not much of a racer, but, regardless if you're racing and trying to be at the pointing end, or if you're just trying to come in, well, maybe not trying to come in DFL, but coming in DFL or anywhere in between, this is hard. This stuff is hard, and everybody's pushing themselves. So
For sure. Yeah, I think it's a good book for anybody who is preparing to do a big challenge. And you're right, it's hard for everyone. The folks that are coming in later, they've been out on the course longer. They've had more weather events. They've been sleeping on the ground even longer. They've been eating trash food or not eating food because nothing is open. So it's a huge challenge, no matter where in the field you are.
Yeah. There's someone still out on course right now, I believe. Did you know that? Let's check real quick. Let's do a live check-in if I can. I was watching your race. How do I reset this thing? I remember their initials are KP. Here we go. Kendall Park is at mile 378.6. So 28 miles left to the finish. So to your point, Kendall is still out there right now, getting it fucking done, which is, yeah, my hat's really, you have to just give so much respect for people who are watching people finish and people finish and people finish, and you are just out there the whole time. And it's just, yeah, it's another, it's impressive to go fast and win, and it's impressive to just endure it for that long. It's just amazing.
We had a tornado event at the ranch the other day. We all went into the basement of the lodge at 3 a.m. So Kendall was out there, getting this warning on their phone and having to find shelter. Just easy.
Define tornado event. Like there was a warning or an active tornado, or
the warning on our phones that said I don't know, tornado in the zone or something like that, and everything wakes you up in the middle of the night with beeping. And then somebody from the lodge came around and knocked on everyone's doors and said, if you want, you can go into the basement. You don't have to, but we recommend it. And so we all filed into the basement of the lodge and hung out for 45 minutes until the warning was over. There wasn't really extreme weather. There was some heavy rain, but not for long. But I don't really understand tornadoes. They don't happen in Canada. From what I understand is there's a big area that it could have come through, and it didn't happen to come near us, but it might have. So, yeah, it would have been a scary thing to be out on the road and get this on your phone in the middle of the night. And I think if you're paying attention to the weather, maybe, you might try and find some shelter ahead of time for that evening, because things look like might get iffy. But just, speaking to your point, it's not easy to be out on the course for that long. You never know what's going to come at you.
Yeah, I would be very interested to hear from anybody that was out on course when that tornado warning was going on. That's proper scary, because I live in a part of Texas that doesn't see a lot of tornado activity, but I grew up, I remember my dad, every time there was a tornado, we would get in the car, and he was like a kamikaze storm chaser. He'd want to go chase it down and go find it. And I've almost been in a tornado. I was driving to an aunt's house, and we saw the tornado coming through the field and had to run into the house. And so I've had some experiences with tornadoes, but they're scary because they're so unpredictable. They can just jump around. They can be here and then jump over here, and you don't know if they're going left, right, sideways. And so the unpredictable, two things: how damaging they are and how unpredictable they are makes them just especially scary. So, oh God, I can't even imagine being out on course with nothing but a freaking bivvy or something, holy crap. Next question. I'm curious, doing a Doom or any of these hard events is, we go for training rides and we try to prepare and stuff, but you're just going, like you said, you're on the absolute knife's edge. It's if you do it right, it'll be the hardest thing you've ever done before. Do you do anything to make a mental switch from, being in a nice bed at an Airbnb and there's coffee in the morning when you wake up and a nice bed, to getting into the mindset of what you're about to take on? Is there any processes that you go through thought processes or anything like that?
I think the night before an event is just really about self-care and laying low and doing anything you can to set yourself up for success the next day. Having a nice meal, making sure my breakfast was prepped, because I was eating oatmeal in my tent, iced coffee, and kind of giving yourself that space. So I signed off from work on Wednesday night. I didn't have anything Thursday before the race to think about. I set my out of office, and once you get to the start and you see all of those people, gearing up and ready to race, for me, that really puts me into the zone. And I just kind of switch a little bit. And I think the, adrenaline is going once rollout happens, and I'm a very different person as soon as that start whistle blows.
What kind of person are you once the start whistle blows?
I guess I'm just like hungry, right? Like I'm hungry to see what's possible, to kind of push my limits, to compete, and that realization happens. Like it all comes down to this. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. It all comes down to this. All this training. It's time to focus, take things seriously, yeah.
What do you think that you get out of? Yeah, again, to your point, there's no prize money. You're not a sponsored athlete. What is your why for pushing yourself this hard? What are you getting out of these, or what do you hope to get out of these events that keeps you coming back?
I don't have a good answer.
That's fair.
Worse, like they always say, like, what's your why? And I like challenging myself. I like competing. I like being out in nature. So it combines all of those things. And I get to, like, I've always liked traveling, right? So you kind of get this weird view of a place that you would not see otherwise. Like, I'm probably not going to go and spend that kind of time just like wandering around the backcountry of Arkansas. And I did, and I saw possums and armadillos and fireflies and all these kinds of weird, strange things that that were interesting and surprising. And I wouldn't have guessed that otherwise.
So speaking of the route, describe, this was your first time in Arkansas, first time to see the route. There's probably a lot of people who listen to this podcast that have never been on the Doom route. How would you describe it to somebody who's never seen it before?
Yeah, it's kind of like 406 miles of unrelenting climbs. It's up and down and up and down. So you're kind of climbing up to these ridge lines and then dropping down into these, kind of hollows or valleys, and then you climb right back up again. There's not too many leaves on the trees, so there's some pretty good views to be had. And then there's these like lovely pink blossoms everywhere. I'm not sure if they're cherry trees or something, but they really sparked up the landscape. The water is this awesome aquamarine blue color. And like every time I saw a river, I was just like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. It was really quite scenic, but quite a lot of it looked the same. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but just that I don't have a great recollection of specific areas of the course, because it's kind of like gravel road, some scraggly trees, some pink blossoms, like, a canyon.
River crossing.
River crossings. Yeah, there's quite a few water crossings.
No people, no restaurants, no, just out there.
Right. I forgot about the remoteness. There's very few communities, and even church spigots are pretty limited.
Yeah.
So,
I think it is hard. I've been to Arkansas a lot throughout my life. It's one of my favorite. It's because of its proximity, also its beauty and everything. Arkansas is a place that I travel to rather frequently to recreate, and no matter how many times I go there, I just can't wrap my head around like how few people that you see and how remote it is. Like so I was on the course just taking pictures, and on day one, I saw you on day one too, when everybody was mostly kind of together, and I just stayed in that same place for almost 12 hours, and in that 12 hours that I was on course, I think only one car passed me on that road. Wow. Like no people. It's there's all these roads everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's like gravel roads going everywhere. And it always surprises me. I'm like, who are these roads for? Because I don't see people out here,
Yeah, I have no answer for that one, but it was great night riding because, often at night I wonder like, what are people going to say when they see some weirdo on a bike? Like, I would rather just not see anyone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
on this course, I saw no one. And when I needed to nap, I just got off of the road, like by a few feet and put my head down and fell asleep. And that's very convenient.
Yeah. No, it's something I absolutely love about. I mean, I don't, yeah. Less people means less cars, less dogs, less potential weird interactions with locals that are going to be curious. I mean, I think we've all been stopped by a local and like, what are you doing? And you try to explain it to them. And of course they don't get it, And so there was someone in Arkansas. Maybe this might've been on the high country, but somebody got stopped by two people that they believed were on meth, and they were looking for an escaped prisoner in the woods, and just all on their own. And then like the rider, I wish I remember who this was, but the racer had to, explain like, no, I'm on this route, I'm doing this race, and they were all very suspect of her. And so imagine being in the middle of freaking nowhere, and you have two potential meth heads that are looking for an escaped prisoner, quote unquote, in their mind, and here you go riding your bike through. Like, less of that is better.
Yeah, I completely agree.
What I'm curious to get your thoughts on the actual like conditions of the roads, because I took my little Subaru on some roads that it should not have been on. Just the steepness, how rocky they were, deadfall everywhere. And some of the roads were so narrow, it's like once you commit to going on in a car, you can't turn around. You just got to kind of go. But what were you surprised by, like how gnarly the roads were?
I guess I expected it because I had talked to people who'd been on course. The steepness is insane. Like, I don't understand how people could build roads that steep. Clearly, I'm not an engineer, but it was some of the grades were shocking. And there's no signage. There's no like sharp turn ahead, steep cliff, steep drop off. There's none of that. Some of the roads are in pretty good condition, fast rolling gravel, and other ones were pretty rough and chunky. There weren't too many places where you had to lift your bike over stuff. So, people are using them, right? Like, there's not tons of down trees. I appreciated how you were never you weren't on a road for too long. Like, you kind of had to pay attention to navigation, and you'd pop onto like a different road and go from, a proper gravel road to like a quad trail to kind of some sort of puddly-ish type thing to, the pavement, but the pavement would be quite short, enough to kind of like, check the tracker because your phone's not bouncing around anymore. So I thought it was really cool the way Andrew linked everything up. And the way he kind of explained it to me was that he's a rock climber, and he discovered a lot of these roads while like staking out rock climbing areas. And then, was like, oh, maybe I could link them up by bike. Like, this could be cool. So I thought that was an interesting kind of basis for creating a route on.
Yeah, that I actually didn't know. I knew he was a climber, but I didn't know that's how I thought he just went out and found the hardest roads in Arkansas and put them all on a route, which I think is probably also true.
Yeah.
But I just want people listening to like understand how hard that route is. The steepness, the rocks, the loose rocks, the big rocks. I think you said unrelenting hills. You're either going up or you're going down, and there's very little time to kind of like catch your breath is the wrong phrase, but like have, even check your tracker. There just isn't a lot of that. It's pretty full on for most of the time, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So this isn't the kind of route that I prefer. Like, I did it and I knew it would be hard and I wanted a challenge, but the BC Epic, that is pretty flat route, mostly rail grade, and you just get on the bike and kind of hammer. And that's like what I'm good at. I'm a diesel. I'm the world 24-hour time trial champion in the female division. Like I get on the bike and I go. So climbing isn't my specialty. On the other hand, I don't think like we should limit ourselves by what we think we're good at, right? Like developing our weaknesses can lead to overall improvements. So that's kind of what I wanted to get from this was a challenge that I wouldn't otherwise do. There's no way I'm going to go ride a course like this by myself. Like I can think one up. So
I don't. I mean, that even speaks to going back like to Terran and going back and riding it as an ITT is just so impressive, because I think I do think it's a little bit easier whenever there's a group out there and it's a group start and there's people competing and you're suffering together and all that kind of stuff. I think, at least for me, that makes it easier. So I would never, just go ride that course just for fun, because it's just so freaking hard, man. How did the beginning of your race go? How did your race start? How were you feeling with, coming over your sickness and everything? Did you feel strong, or were you still working through some of that? How was the beginning of your race?
Yeah, I felt really good starting out. It begins with a nice climb at a Horseshoe Canyon Ranch and rolls into another good climb and some single track. I was kind of in the lead group, and I got passed by no less than 30 people on the first single track section.
Oh, wow.
I just like stepped aside and people were whizzing by me, and I was like, I worked so hard to get here, and I can't keep up. And then I told myself like, oh, well, half these racers aren't even in your race. They're in despair, the shorter version. So don't stress so hard, Meaghan. And my strength is in my stamina. So I kind of hoped that I would catch people later. After that single track section, I just kind of chugged away at the first resupply. I think in kilometers, it's about 87. I stopped and, grabbed some things, and I prepared to do a 400-kilometer push without another resupply, because the next resupply was Slim Jim's barbecue, and it was off route, and I do not go off route. When that resupply came around, I had topped up my water at a church spigot, and I blew by it and leapt into the lead, which was like such an awesome moment for me. Sunset was upon me. The sky was all pink and fuchsia and orange, and I'm ripping down this descent, and I check the tracker, and I'm just like 5 miles ahead of everyone. And I've got this like group of 10 dudes chasing after me. And
yeah.
I felt so good. It was like, it was just a wonderful feeling to, to have been working all day to kind of get here, and that was how I rolled into the night, and I kept it up until I hit that there's a road that dead ends and a pretty deep water crossing. It's kind of knee thigh level. So I pushed pretty hard till there, and then I took a little bit of a break. I peed for the first time in like 14 hours, and
oh man.
washed my face and took a little micro break, and then reset for the rest of the night shift.
Define what a micro break is? And I mean, obviously you got people on your heels, so you're probably pretty aware of that.
Yeah, I stopped for about 5 minutes to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. I peed, I did a little saddle lady bits hygiene, washed my face. I just I plugged in my devices to charge, all those kinds of things that you might forget to do. Put some layers on. I didn't know how cold it would get, and I don't like being cold, so I waited until I got over the thigh deep water crossing to put my leg warmers on, because I would just have to take them off and put them on again. I changed my socks. I put my warm, dry socks on for the night shift. And so I kind of got ready to ride into the night, so that hopefully it would reduce like fiddling around for the next 10 hours. Yeah.
Get settled in and try to just lock into your ride for as long as possible without any more stops. That move, so Hillbilly Slims, so in miles, it comes at 120 miles. And that was such a clutch move to blow past it when some other riders stopped too, but they were already behind you. But all the leaders stopped there, and you leapfrogged them, which was just. Which I mean, we're dot watching and we're like, oh my gosh, she skipped the resupply, and holy shit, she's in the lead, and this is awesome. And so that was always your plan to never stop there.
Yeah, I don't think a barbecue shack is my favorite resupply on an event like this. My stomach turns a bit in the heat, so I didn't think I'd be able to eat much anyways. And I don't have that much trouble with resupply. I had 2 feed sacks. I had a ton of stuff. I have a carb mix that I've been putting into my hydration bladder. So I felt like I've been getting enough calories all day. I wasn't worried about the night. I also knew that if I was going along my schedule, I would miss the next resupply. I think it was Bird's Adventure Center. Like I knew that it wouldn't be open when I got there if I stuck to my schedule. And that was the case. I think I went by a bit before 7 and it opened at 8 or 8:30. So yeah, always the plan. I also saw that Hannah was a bit behind me, and I thought that she would miss it because it would be closed. And again, trying to take the female when I didn't want to stop at a resupply that she wasn't going to stop at and go off course for it and waste time. So that was another thing that I was thinking about.
Yeah. Whenever you had the lead, you said you were excited. I love that because the lead can put extra pressure. I mean, it is extra pressure. I mean, instead of chasing somebody, you now have the entire field honing in on you and coming after you. But that was a position you felt pretty comfortable in and were excited to be in.
Yeah. I think it's an incredible opportunity to lead a race. Like you are the person that people are after. You've got a target on your back, but it's your chance to push the pace, and you might wear a few people out, or you might wear yourself out. There's a lot that can happen, but I think that the lead switching hands is what makes bike pack racing exciting, and I think it's why I prefer shorter courses in general to like these really, really long multi-week events, because there's more potential for these exciting things to happen. And that's not to say that leads don't change hands in long ultras and long ultras are boring. I'm just saying that it's a lot harder and you're much more fatigued, on day 8 of a race to go for these kinds of moves, right? And what's the worst that can happen? I could lose the lead. Like, okay, well, so what? I had it for a bit. Like, it felt pretty good when I had it. So,
yeah. Were you surprised that the leaders stopped at that store? Were you expecting that, like leading up to it? Were you thinking that might be a possibility? You might gain an advantage, or did that surprise you?
I think it surprised me a little bit. I didn't, I think it was like 2.5 kilometers. So like maybe 1.6 miles each way. And I think it was a highway kind of, highway ride, so it wouldn't have taken that long. But again, it's you're not going to like just sit down and get your food in a minute, right? It's a minimum 45-minute detour with that, the time of waiting for something. So I was surprised that everyone went there, but I think that's sometimes how things go, right? One person does it and then everybody else kind of does it too. So I felt like I was cheating, actually. I felt a little bit bad.
No, you played the game. You were within the rules. It was perfect. And yeah, from our perspective, it was really fun to watch, and it was like kind of like a holy shit moment. Like it just, because the race just turned like on a dime almost. It went from like being one thing to now you're in the lead and everybody's playing catch up to you. And I'm curious, you're having a good time, you're in the lead. Did that get in your head at all? Were you able to like stay within your plan, or did being in the lead kind of, make you want to push a little bit harder and fend for that lead a little bit longer? Like, how did you manage that?
I think it made the first night more fun, but I probably should have stopped to rest because it is such challenging terrain. And, you have to be so focused and dialed on the descents. So they're not really like relaxing either. And so I think I had a lot of like mental fatigue from day one, and it would have been to my benefit to stop and have a nap. But I didn't feel like sleeping. I was wound up and excited. So yeah, maybe if I wasn't in the lead, it would have been, maybe sleep would have come to me earlier and I could have had a rest and been in better shape for the next, day and night to follow. But as it was, there was no way I was stopping to sleep at that point. So I think it did impact how I did things a little bit. And then when the second night rolled around and I realized it was going to be on the course longer than expected, I did have to stop and sleep. And if I'd slept the first night, maybe I could have slept less or not at all the second night. Like, it's hard to tell. But yeah, for being on the course for over 48 hours, I knew that I would have to get sleep.
Yeah. I had another question about, so when Dexter caught up to you and ultimately passed you, did y'all have any conversations at that time? What did y'all talk about?
Yeah. So we bumped into each other at the Tat Shack, and that's kind of this like motorbike shack for long haul motorbikers that was on the cue sheet. And they have water and plugs, and you can sleep there. It's just like an unlocked house. It's very cool. There's a fridge full of beer. He was like, "Do you want a PBR?" And I was like, maybe when I get to the finish."
That's wild.
Yeah, we both had a refill, and I'd been there like just a couple minutes. And I heard some footsteps, and I didn't know who it was. Like, it could be a motorbiker, it could be anybody. And then he walked in, and I literally was like, "What's your name?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm Dexter." I was like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, "You're Meaghan." And I was like, "Yeah." And we chatted for just a minute about like how the race was going and stuff. And then I hopped on my bike. I left. He was right behind me, and he didn't catch me for like 2 hours. And I don't understand. I didn't know what was going on. When he finally did catch me, he said his computer had a glitch and he got off course and it like bricked him or something. So he, did a little bit of a extra tour in the Arkansas backcountry at night that kept him behind me for a bit longer. When he did pass me, it was on a climb, and he just like chatted for 30 seconds and then danced up the climb. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that happened pretty quickly. He's quite strong.
Yeah. No, he also put on a really, really strong ride. How long did you have the lead? From track leaders, it looks like you were in the lead for like 5 to 6 hours.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of doing some bonus miles, did you know Kuya forgot his? Yeah. So for listeners, you could, I think it was entering Buffalo Headwaters. You could Andrew said you could drop your gear at the beginning of the single track, your extra bags and whatever, and then ride the single track because it comes in a loop, and then pick up your gear and keep on going. And Kuya did that, but he forgot to grab his gear and had to go back quite a bit. I don't remember the mileage, but it was a decent amount of mileage to go back and get it. Did you drop your gear, or did you ride the single track with all of your gear on it?
I didn't really have a good way to drop my gear. Everything is pretty tight to the bike, and there's nothing really I could pull off besides a feed sack. And I didn't want to leave food in case animals got to it, right? So I could have left my water, and then I wouldn't have any water. It didn't really have anything that made sense to drop the way I had my setup. And Kuya had panniers. So for him, it was easy, pull the panniers off and leave him there. I ran into him when he was coming back on the course, and he was grinning. He was like, he was in good spirits. I think it probably impacted his race later because he went pretty hard to go back and pick his stuff up. And I think he had some hallucinations and some rough stuff happening in the night. But what a great attitude. Like, he was, he wasn't whinging and moaning about it. He just went and picked his stuff up and came back and did it in really good time as well.
Yeah. Kuya's great. He lives in Texas. He lives in Austin, and he's won my East Texas showdown. And so I know Kuya, and he's just always smiling, just absolute suffering with a big smile on his face. He always has such a great attitude, and it's good. I wanted to touch more on your food because resupply is so limited. And also Andrew does this on Easter weekend. And so some of the, resupply points are closed, which I just think is hilarious that I don't know if that's intentional. I mean, I know it's intentional. He does it on Easter weekend, but I don't know about the resupply aspect of it. But refueling is a critical point of this race. What was your strategy? What did you carry? What did you eat? How much food did you carry? And when did you resupply?
Yeah, so I started out with some candy granola bars. I am supported by F2C Nutrition, and they're a Canadian nutrition company, and they have a carb mix. I mixed the unflavored carb mix with the mango to reduce the flavor. And I brought 3,000 calories of that, 1,000 in my hydration bag, which is 2.5 liters, and then 2,000 that I filled up throughout the first and second day. And then I stuffed all of my food, including the hydration stuff, into my feed sacks. At the first resupply, I didn't really know what I was going to get at JB Trading Post. And I'm trying to be quick, right? So I drank like a Coke, and I bought 5 king-size Snickers bars and a bag of Skittles as my resupply. I did not eat those Snickers, all of them. It was not what my body wanted in the heat. They did not make me happy. They were not easy to get down. The liquid stuff I did a lot better with. And I think in future I would bring more powdered nutrition because it's easy to drink, and I would probably just bring unflavored because I'm eating candy. I don't, if I have one thing to drink, I don't want it to be sweet at all. I brought a water filter and some tabs, and my plan was to just filter water at the creeks so that I would get fresh water, and then I'd have my hydration mix in my bag. And then I accidentally left my filter at one of the church spigots. I used it to drink out of the spigot, like just as a cup, and then I dropped it on the ground and forgot it there. So I just had to drink my mix and use tabs to fill it up, which was kind of annoying because it's so nice to be able to stop and get fresh, cold water when you want it, right? And you can't really do that when you're using tabs. You can't just drink out of the creek like you can with the squeezy filter. And then the next resupply, I missed the hours at the ORC store. So there was a cafe, and I popped in. I drank a ton of coffee, a ton of Coke. I ordered chicken pasta, and I just picked at it. My stomach was not happy with the heat. I had been, just pushing for long enough and hard enough. I didn't feel like eating anything, but I knew I had to, but I couldn't. So they gave me a Ziploc bag, and I took it to go. I got a sandwich to go, and I had some chips, and I threw it in my backpack. I carried it all the way to the finish and did not touch any of it, and then threw it out because it had been in, the heat for 24 hours or whatever. So that was a waste, but I got to try my new Apidura backpack, which was it was comfortable. It did not bother me carrying this food around. It was just kind of stupid, right? So I didn't have an issue with resupply. I finished with probably at least 3,000 calories on my bike. I was worried about it, but it didn't turn out to be an issue. So I think part of it is the beginning of the race, you're going hard, you're burning more calories, you're pushing higher power. By the second half, you're kind of more in survival mode. You're trucking, right. You're not burning as many calories. So
your body won't let you push that hard anymore.
Exactly. So some of my staples in general are, bananas when I can get them, and then candy, and then Twizzlers, but those easy pull apart ones that are a bit softer, and anything liquid I can get my hands on, like iced coffee or Coke or juice, smoothies, just stuff that's easier to digest. And I really wish the ORC store was open because, like I said, I probably spent $50 in that cafe, and the only calories I got were from liquid stuff.
Man, so most of your calories on this ride came from that carb mix that you brought, it sounds like.
Yeah. I think I had 3 bags of candy as well. That went really easily. And then I ate it I forced down some of those Snickers and some granola bars, but the carb mix was easy. And I don't think it upset my stomach or anything like that. It just
I've never tried those. I'm kind of curious to give that a try.
Yeah, I find they work really well. You can make them up stronger if you're using a powder. But I would always recommend having water accessible because it's really easy to get palate fatigue, and then you don't want to drink what you have, and then you're, getting dehydrated and hungry. And if you make it too strong, that doesn't work very well either. There's kind of a balance, but yeah, for anybody using carb mix, I would always recommend having water as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about your stoppage time. So 5 hours and 30 minutes, according to track leaders. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that could make sense.
That makes sense. What did you, I know you said you stopped to sleep. Like, when did you sleep and how much did you sleep? And yeah.
So the second night I stopped probably around 11. I bumped into a guy named Charles at one of the water crossings, and he was doing Despair. We rode together for a little bit on one of the climbs, and then I don't know, I was getting like mesmerized by his tail light, and I realized it was just time to take a nap. We had started on this pretty rough descent, and you really had to focus, and I pulled off, and I set an alarm for 45 minutes. I wanted to give myself a pretty good nap. I brought an emergency blanket, brought a rain jacket, so I tucked myself into those, and I forgot to press start on the alarm, and I fell asleep. I woke up feeling refreshed. I looked at my phone, and the alarm wasn't on. I had no idea how long I was there for. So half hour, an hour, I'm not sure. I woke up pretty chilly. I wore my rain jacket until I warmed up again. Temperatures weren't too cold, but once you stop moving and you're that fatigued, like I cooled down pretty quickly. So, and then I kept rolling until just before sunrise, and I hit a pavement section, and I was weaving on the pavement a bit. I was going uphill really slowly, and I just realized that I was getting into the danger zone. I wasn't necessarily behaving like a safe rider anymore. And then if I took a quick nap to sleep, that I would probably come back stronger and faster and be able to push to the finish without stopping again. So I pulled off, put my rain jacket on, again, just the side of the road, and for some reason, again, did not set an alarm, and I fell asleep, woke up, whatever time that was, and I was being chased by a couple guys at that time. One of them was Zach from Squamish, and that just lit a fire under my ass, and I started moving pretty quickly at that point because I didn't know how long I slept for, and I really didn't want to lose my spot in third place. I'd been overtaken by second place, I think, when I was having my first nap. So yeah, I went from maybe that time, 6 a.m. to the finish, like feeling really good, really energized. It's amazing what a bit of sleep will do for you. But I also think kind of being in the thick of things again, being like, okay, like we're down to the final push. There's a bunch of people like who want to get on this podium, and you have the spot. Like you've got to really work to keep it now. And that's enough to keep me like mentally engaged and going hard.
Yeah. I saw there was a video of you that was shared on Instagram of you coming into the finish line so hot. Like you were flying into the finish line, which I thought it just made me smile. I'm like, and I think the tag was like, that's how you finish a race. Like you were just flat out. Yeah. Were you just feeling good by the end of it? Excited to finish? Excited to get that lock in that third place?
Yeah, definitely. I was working pretty hard. There were two big climbs near the end that I pushed my bike at least halfway up, and I was getting like the rider behind me, Edward, was getting closer and closer, and it was stressing me out, but at the same time it was keeping me going. And the final descent, I was like, okay, Meaghan, you finally have it. Like, that he's not going to pass you on this descent. You can see that he's a few miles back. And I just like unleashed. I was ripping down the hill, like with a big grin on my face, and just celebrating my finish. I wanted to come in hot and get every second, just make every second count.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're thinking at this point, I mean, to be clear, you were third, because I said third, but that's third overall and first female finisher is where you finally stood. But so on your mind was potential women's FKT at this point?
Well, you can't really get an FKT because the course has changed, right?
But you
So
can set a new one for a new course.
I guess so.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess you'll set it anyway. I guess you set it anyway, but it's making it hard for people to come after you.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I did want to set a high bar. And I did set the fastest female time at Doom on the longest course with the most single track. So I am proud of that. Like that's exciting. But it's not like an FKT officially because, like I said, the course has changed before, or the course has changed this time in comparison to other courses. So
yeah.
So
for you, what was the biggest challenge of this race, either physically or mentally, mechanicals, anything? Like, what was the biggest challenge that you faced and had to overcome?
I was pretty discouraged after the single track on day 2, and my power was really low. I just got power pedals for that bike, and I actually disconnected them because the numbers were bridging, and I was like, "This is not draining me, draining my
It's like
back."
a mind fuck. You're like, no, I can't look at that right now.
Yeah, it was awful. So I think like not yeah, I think it was just constant challenges, and not being able to really like take my foot off the gas was exhausting. So that exhaustion, once that kind of hit, was a bit overwhelming. And when I sat down at the cafe in Oark, like I did not want to get back up again. And I knew I had to, but there was just a sense of dread and doom like spilling over me. And I felt really miserable. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to just quit. I want to DNF. And I called my mom, and she's like, well, then just quit then, Meaghan. No one cares about this as much as you do. And then it made me realize like I care enough to not quit. And like, why am I going to quit when I'm in second place and I've got the women's lead? Like, it sounds dumb, but I was in a dark place for a couple hours there. And it's amazing how your mind, swings from high to low. And I know that, but it's so hard to remember when you are feeling low that you're going to come out of it, right? Like, it's just really, it's really hard to see beyond those blinders in that moment in time. So I was just feeling, that was my kind of low point after the single track. I think the heat had gotten to me a bit. I was, not moving as fast as I expected to, and I was exhausted and just needed to kind of harness some energy from somewhere, and I didn't know where I was going to get it from. But I think that caffeine in the Coke and coffee helped me. No mechanicals. I lost my pump, which I had just put on my front fork on like the first rough descent. And I looked down when I was doing the water, or not even the water crossing. I think when I was at the first resupply, and I didn't have my pump anymore. I had 2 CO2 cartridges, those nice like beefy ones. But I kind of figured that if I really needed to DNF for some reason and I just couldn't mentally hold it together, I would take a knife and slash my tire and be like, oh, look what happened. I lost my pump and I can't fix it. Whoops. So that was my out that I had kicking around. I was a little bit anxious though, just the nature of the course, and CO2 sometimes just doesn't seem to do the trick, right? Like, it's a bit of a gamble to not have a pump. Definitely, like, stupid mistake. Don't put anything that valuable on your front fork where it could fly off. Like, it had a little, bungee cord thing around it, but clearly not enough to protect it for the Arkansas roads.
Yeah. Well, my next question was going to be, hindsight being 2020, what would you have done differently, either preparing or going or during the race? I have to think now one of them is putting your pump in a different location, even though I guess you didn't wind up needing it, but just like kind of the mental, it's a mental fuckery. You're like, oh shit, I got 2 CO2s, and that's the only thing keeping me from potentially being out of the race. But is there anything else that you would have done differently?
I would have done more outdoor rides in the February and March leading up to it. And I would have practiced more trail riding so that I'd be a bit confident and a bit quicker on the trail. I think those 2 things could have helped me a bit, and at least it would have made the single track section more enjoyable for me. And I think it's good that it's there. I think it's a really great challenge, but it totally did me in.
Yeah. What are your takeaways? You've had a little bit of time to reflect, and I know that I I think the takeaways kind of come in layers for a lot of people, over time. It's like, okay, what did I actually learn from that? But I'd love to hear just anything that you're proud of from your just amazing finish, and just any takeaways, anything that you learned from Doom this year.
I think I learned the importance of just relentless forward progress. In the single track sections where I was going slow, I was still moving forward. And there's been other times I did an event called the Big Lonely, and the final, 50 miles to the finish are this downhill single track section through volcanic rock. And I just stopped and started and fiddled around and checked the tracker. And it took me forever. And I wasn't in danger of being caught by anyone, so I wasn't very motivated. But I just made it worse for myself by stopping all the time. Whereas at least this time I kept moving. And as long as you can kind of keep moving, you will get there eventually. And then I think just, remembering that the highs and lows are going to come in waves, and you have to weather them. And there's different ways to do that. Everybody has their tricks, listening to music or, positive affirmations, but you're gonna soar, and then you're gonna crash, and that's part of it. And that's okay. That's part of the adventure.
I'd love to hear what mechanisms, what processes you have to pull yourself out of the dark places when you're thinking about DNFing and calling your mom. I mean, it is. I mean, I think that is a huge distinguishing factor in finishing and not. I mean, it is a distinguishing factor because anyone who's done this kind of stuff knows that there's a lot of reasons that are valid that you could pull the plug and you could DNF, but the separation is finding something within yourself, or maybe eating food or whatever it is to keep pushing. But what do you do? What's your process to overcome those hurdles whenever they arise?
I think breaking things down into baby steps and just, trying, sometimes it's hard to swallow when you think about the elevation and the distance that you have to cover between X point and X resupply or the finish. It feels insurmountable. But if you stop thinking about that and just focus on the climb that you're on, or, getting over the next hurdle, or getting to the next feature on the map, I'm not going to say town even. Houses, that can be helpful. And I think maybe even not looking ahead, just focusing on where you're at and being in that experience, and focusing on pushing the power through the pedals, and can be good. I did have quite a bit of lower back pain, which was making me unhappy at times, and so to try and not think about that was difficult, because of course you fixate on what hurts, right? But I kept trying to be grateful, and reminding myself hey, at least your knees are okay, you're messed up 2 ACL surgeries are doing all right today. So I think those are a couple of the things I think about. It's hard to even go back there, because I think sometimes the hard stuff gets buried under the good stuff, which is, I think, maybe what keeps us coming back, right?
Mm. Yeah, we have short-term memories, I feel like, for how hard things actually are. And I've talked about this recently because it's been on my mind. It's just been a thought experiment, I guess. But I feel like it's evolutionary that we as a species have short-term memory for hard things, because if we fixate on them too much and internalize them too much, we might stop that relentless forward progress, And I don't know, I'm no scientist or anything, but that's just my armchair quarterback thought on it is there is something there where we're able to kind of strain out the good things and mostly remember those, the fireflies and the frogs and the beautiful rivers and the fast descents and whatever it is, and somehow the pain and the suffering doesn't rise to the top as easily, and it's harder to access.
I'm totally with you there. Yeah. Unless there's a traumatic event, a big crash or something like that. It just kind of fades, softens.
Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Let's see what's next. I lost my place. Oh, a fun one. So after, you celebrate at the finish line with Andrew and the crew and everybody that's there, what's the first thing on your to-do list? What was the first thing you did? Eat, beer, shower, sleep. What's the first thing you did?
Yeah, someone offered to cook me some hash browns and sausage. Someone passed me a beer, and I sat around until Edward, the fellow who was chasing me, came in. And he comes in with a big grin on his face. He's like super, just like full of good cheer. So I think once he came in and I'd eaten and hydrated with my beer, I wanted a shower pretty badly. So that was that was high on my list. Andrew had gotten some tokens for us, so we didn't have to like go around and go exchange money for tokens and go use the camp showers. So that made things a little bit easier. But the camp showers weren't like super clean. I think there were some like dead leaves that looked a bit mucky on the floor, and they were nice and hot. That was awesome. I think maybe it was Dexter was taking a shower in another shower, and he's like, "Do you want some soap?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was just like a bar of soap he found on the ground. He passed to me, and I was like, "I should have brought some hygiene products, Meaghan. I'm using some soap that somebody found on the ground to wash my hair and wash all this grit off my body. It feels good, but I think I could have planned a little bit more ahead and brought something else to clean myself with."
Maybe that's one of your takeaways for the next one. Something you learned: hygiene products for after, self-care for afterwards.
Yeah, spending a little more time thinking about what's going to happen once you get to the finish. After that, I took a nap, and I slept really well upstairs in the loft of the barn, and came back down and just spent the evening, ringing in the finishers. I got to see Hannah and everybody else who came in that evening, so that was fun. And the next couple of days, it was just about kind of getting some more food into me and getting my electrolytes back up and trying to get as much sleep as possible. But like I said, it was on crash pads and sofas and blow up air mattresses. So last night in a real bed was pretty luxury for me.
Yeah, bet you woke up today feeling like a real person for the first time in a while.
Oh, yeah. And I got to drink some real coffee. It was
not cold coffee, not Starbucks in the can coffee, like real coffee.
Yeah.
So what is next for you? You said Tour Divide. Do you have any other events planned between now and then? What does your life look like to prepare and get ready for the Tour Divide?
Yeah, so I just arrived in San Diego. I'm staying with some friends I met when I was cycling the Pacific Coast in 2009. So I'm going to do some bikepacking trips while I'm here and just, try and test things out, explore the area. When I get back to BC, I'm doing an event called the Buckshot, and it's around a 400-kilometer mixed surface race about 2 hours from my house in Kamloops. It's a really fun race. It's usually pretty challenging, but I think after this, it's going to feel like a walk in the park. And
perspective is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's about 3 weeks before the divide. And I'm doing a gravel race. I think the Cranbrook gravel grind, maybe 110K. And that'll be more just for fun and community. I'm doing the Belgian waffle ride while I'm in San Diego. So that'll be cool. I'm not really a gravel racer. I feel like I start to shine after 12 hours. But on the other hand, like, I think it's nice to have things to train for and work towards. And I am here. Why not do it? Yeah.
Have you attempted or ridden much on the Tour Divide prior to this attempt coming up?
No, I haven't. It's been on my list of things to kind of do as a tour, like a section of it in maybe BC, Montana. But I haven't. I did an event called the Alberta Rockies 700 a few years ago, and that takes on some of this Tour Divide route. And it was absolutely gorgeous. It's a really cool area, it's a really cool race route. I was thinking about biking to the start, but the more gravel route from my house is like almost 1,000 kilometers, and that's a pretty long haul. And going away for the Tour Divide is already it's already a long time away from work and stuff like that, so I don't think I can swing it. The highway ride is much quicker, but I don't really want to ride the highway to the start of a long off-road race. I just don't think it'll be that doesn't excite me. So I will get a ride from somebody.
Harder to get in a good mental headspace when you got cars whizzing by you, the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some big passes. So you're kind of chugging up these passes really slowly with, big vehicles coming by. And it's on the Cross Canada touring route, but I would rather not.
So the Tour Divide sounds like more in your traditional wheelhouse of a type of route and event that you might feel like you're strong in. Doesn't have it's not as technical. Of course, there's some technical parts, but just overall, it's not as technical as some other races out there. Have you already set some goals and intentions for your Tour Divide, and are you willing to share what those are?
Yeah, I think it's difficult for an event that is that long that I haven't, spent time on the route, and I don't want to underestimate it, but I would love a sub 20-day finish. I think that that could be possible. It's much longer than any of the off-road events that I've done. Like my long events have been road biking. So being kind of in more remote places for that duration is something that will really challenge me. And that's why I'm hoping to do some kind of bike packing trips while I'm down here in Southern California by myself to feel more comfortable being alone. Most of the bike packing trips I've done for fun have been with my partner, or they've been on the road. So there will be some pretty big challenges there. I'm hoping to, after seeing Lachlan Morton's attempt, prioritize sleep more than I have in the past in other events. Because I've definitely had that sleep deprivation catch up with me, and I've had some pretty negative experiences, I think, just because I've been in an altered headspace from not sleeping enough for consecutive days. And, I think he's proven that you can put a great time in and get some sleep. And I don't know if I'm going to manage 6 hours a night, but I will be prioritizing my sleep, and hopefully that pays off. Other than that, I guess we'll see how it goes. Like, I love being competitive. So if there's people around me that I can chase or be chased by, that will keep me going and motivate me, and we'll see how I wind up.
All right. Well, kicking off the year with a really good win at Doom. I just want to congratulate you for winning, coming in third overall. I really enjoyed being out there and getting to kind of experience it from the sidelines, but watch dots and see everybody else who is excited for you. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast to chat with me, and wish you luck on the Tour Divide. I'll be watching your dot and rooting for you for sure. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. This has been super fun. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I wish you the best in the AZT once you get that bicycle.
I know. Send me well wishes, because I need a little bit of luck from the bike gods to get my bike here on time, and I'm absolutely freaking out about it. But I was texting with Jacob Loose or Louse. Do you know how to?
I rode with him a bit. Jacob Loose.
Loose. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's Jacob Loose, and I apologize, Jacob. He's been on the podcast, and so I apologize if I'm messing up your last name, but I was texting with him. He's asking me how it's going, and I was like, man, I'm, kind of freaking out, waiting on bike parts. I mean, everybody in the cycling industry right now knows that we got supply chain problems. We got, part supply issues and all this stuff. And he just said, it wouldn't be a bike packing race if you weren't scrambling at the last minute to get things in order. And, I'm thinking about Justin Us, who had to borrow a bike from Uber, like a bike frame from Uber, days before the Tour Divide. I can't remember if his bike broke or something happened, and Uber let him borrow a bike, and they had to build it up over 24 hours. And I mean, it was just like all down to the wire. And, this stuff happens. And so I'm just trying to roll with the punches and be like, okay, it's going to be okay.
Best approach. It's not easy, but I think it's the best approach.
Yeah, I'm trying not to panic too much. But anyway, I appreciate it very much. I will hopefully be out there on Thursday at 7 a.m. Trying the hardest ride of my life. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you, Meaghan. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy not having to, you don't have to ride Doom anymore unless you want to sign up again. So you're done. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going to put my bike together and go buy some groceries and stuff. So that'll be a little bit of an easier task.
Awesome. Well, enjoy it and have a great day. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into today's episode, and a huge shout out and congratulations goes to Meaghan for an absolutely crushing performance at Arkansas Doom. Looking forward to seeing how she does on the Tour Divide. Should be some good dot watching this year. All right, well, back here in my world, as I mentioned at the beginning of today's episode, life has just been extra challenging lately, partly my fault because I have just said yes to too many things. I've completely overcommitted myself. I've committed to 5 events that I'm either running, organizing, or riding in or covering in a 6-week period. And in addition to that, there's just been a lot of life stressors in the background that have just really been challenging and has just taken a lot of my time, attention, and focus to address. And as a result, I'm now, what is today? Today is Friday. And I am leaving for the Arizona Trail Race on first thing on Tuesday morning. So we got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then leaving on Tuesday. And then the ITT starts on Thursday, April 11th at 7 a.m. And there's just been so much chaos kind of in the backgrounds with getting to the start line. At this point, I feel like just getting to the start line is going to be the hardest part of this whole race. And I know that's not true. I know the AZT is going to absolutely be a huge challenge, but let me just kind of give you a brief overview of what's been going on, because many of y'all will know that I borrowed a full suspension specialized bike from a listener, which is just super awesome and gracious that anybody would make that offer. It's like a super nice specialized stump jumper, S-Works, top of the line, very, very nice bike, way above my pay grade. But if I'm, no offense to the owner of the bike, but I don't own a full suspension for a reason. I sold mine. I think the last one I owned was back in 2019. And riding this bike reminded me why I sold that bike. And no shade to anybody out there that likes to ride full suspension, but I'm just not a huge fan of full suspension bikes. I really like the more tactile response that you get from a hardtail. Feel like you're more immersed in the trail and whatnot, and climbing just feels more efficient, and I feel more comfortable, I feel more confident, I feel more happy on a hardtail. And so I was already planning to get the new Panorama Tourangot tie, which is a really unique hardtail mountain bike that can fit anywhere from like a 2.3-inch tire all the way up to a fat bike tire. So it's a really unique, one-of-a-kind bike. And I was already planning on getting one. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger and made that happen. And then it has just been nothing but problems trying to get that bike here at my house. So we've had part issues, supply issues, shipping issues, and the bike was looking like it would be here today, but the bike got held up in customs, it looks like, and is delayed, and now it's not going to get here till Monday. And again, I'm leaving on Tuesday, and I have to get like a wheel built and, the bike assembled and tuned and everything ready. So it really just, there's just no time to get that bike ready. So I had kind of ridden off this full suspension and hadn't got it ready, I didn't want to take this guy's bike and completely, change it up and put all my stuff on there and do all this work on it. And if I wasn't going to ride it, but now I am going to ride it. So that's what I'm doing now, is frantically getting this bike ready to go. And, the old man mountain rack that I had, I don't have the right adapter. I don't have the right rack, and I don't even know what I don't know at this point. I'm literally just now kind of getting into wrapping my head around riding this bike. And like the last time I rode a full suspension bike on a bikepacking trip was in 2019. And so like everything I own is set up for a hardtail mountain bike or a gravel bike. Like that's all my bags, my whole system, how I've always bikepacked. Well, maybe not always, but except for a few times, has been on a hardtail or a full suspension. And so like all my gear, just my familiarity and my understanding of like how to pack those types of bikes is what my comfortability is. And so, yeah, I'm just scrambling at the last minute to try to get everything ready to go to the start line. And one of the problems I've been dealing with in the background is I've got a Subaru that has some car problems, and I don't even know exactly what they are. I'm supposed to have a mechanic coming over today to like take a look at it and see if I can even drive that car to Arizona. Because you may remember that I have another Subaru Forester that's sitting in my driveway. I owned that one for 2 weeks. I drove it out to the Tour Divide, and on the way home, the engine bricked, and that car is now dead. So that I just took like $7,000 and lit it on fire, essentially. And I really don't want to do that again. So I'm kind of anxious and nervous about that. And anyway, it just feels like a lot of last minute preparation, but I know I'm not the only one. I know that there's a lot of people out there that have life stuff that comes up and a lot of frantic scrambling before they start, a big ride. There's a lot to take care of. And so that's the boat I'm in. But at this point, I'm feeling confident that I'm going to make it to the start line. There was a period of time where I was like, oh shit, can I get all this stuff done in time? And, I'm just praying that the car is okay. And hopefully I get a thumbs up from my mechanic today whenever he comes over. So I'm definitely worried about the AZT. It is going to be challenging. It looks like it's going to be hot. It's going to be hard. I believe the finish rate for 2023 on the 300 was only 14% of the field actually finished. So, there's a part of me that is terrified. But to be honest, like I'm so hectic and scrambling around with just getting to the start line. At this point, it feels like that's the biggest challenge, is just getting to the start line. So that's what I'm focused on now. And so we won't have a podcast next week, but I do have a podcast that I recorded with Natalie and I when we did our Mid-South a few weeks ago. I recorded 9 hours of audio during our ride, so it is just a huge editing project to get that one delineated down to something that's actually listenable and enjoyable for y'all. So we got that one coming up eventually. And I'm also going to be recording, of course, my AZT experience. And so we got more podcasts coming. But next up, probably just some dot watching. So again, Thursday, 7 a.m., we got a small contingent of cyclists that are going to be taking on the AZT. I think we got 5 or 6 total in our little unofficial group start that we organized. So we'll have some dot watching for you. All right, well, that's what we got for you. If you would like to support this work, a great way to do it is over at patreon.com/bikesfordeath. Mostly, I just want to thank you for being here. I'm sorry it was so long between episodes, and I will definitely try to not make that a regular occurrence. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. It is always a pleasure. Until next time, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. floor. Fear turned into strength as you push further. Every pedal stroke, stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes, oh death. Bikes, oh death.